So today I'm talking with Amanda Ree, who is a canine well-being expert and founder of Samadog. So Amanda, thank you for joining me. Today we're talking a little bit about the intersection of animals and spirituality, and we get to talk dogs today. I do a lot of talking cats, and so I'm so excited to talk dogs with you.
Me too. Thank you for having me and for your love and support of the animals as well.
Wonderful. So just to get started, if you could describe, what do you do at Samadog? What is Samadog?
Mm-hmm. Well, what Samadog is all about is bringing humans and their dogs together to provide natural, holistic, spiritual experience, practice, inspiration, and resources. And so we, with the inspiration of the timeless wisdom of Ayurveda, have a assortment of offerings and teachings and products that people can resource and tap into to bring balance, sama, to their dogs' lives.
Which I put a Midwestern twang on apparently and call Sama. So we'll have to go right past that, right?
That's all right. We'll bring back the Indian twang.
There we go. So can you talk a little bit about Ayurveda for folks who might not be aware of what that is?
Yes, sure. Ayurveda is the body-mind healing system of the East. It's a timeless system that literally means Ayus, life, and Veda, the study of, or the wisdom of. So it's the study of life, the study of nature. And what Ayurveda guides us toward is vibrant health. So not simply the absence of disease, the absence of anything apparently wrong, but the presence of everything apparently right. And that's the big difference that Ayurveda makes in just existing versus thriving. And the inspiration that I felt for bringing this knowledge forward was because I saw that most dogs were existing and not thriving because people don't have a lot of tools and resources or knowledge of how to do that themselves. And that's where Samadog comes in, because I aim to empower and provide wisdom to human companions, so they do feel like they can be the best advocates possible for their animals, and they know exactly how to do that.
I love that. That's your tagline is dogs and their humans, as opposed to humans and their dogs.
Yes.
And so that kind of putting the dogs first, I presume that was intentional?
Indeed. It was, because, and I did think a lot about that, but the reason is because clearly dogs are our focus at Samadog. And yet dogs are not able to jump online and come to our classes or purchase our products or listen
to
the conversation. Yes, give it a little more time. And I think they would want to attend, by the way. I think they would love all that we have to offer if they could access it. And they actually do. Even it's quite funny when I get on the phone with clients, very often the dogs will act or respond in a different way. They're really excited about the phone call. So we always joke that they know what's going on over here, that their life's getting better by the second. So yes, dogs are the focus. So that's why dogs and their humans, but clearly the humans need to channel that information into their dog's life. But that's what's so powerful and important about this work, is the human then is influenced by the knowledge also. They are willing, in many cases, more willing than they are for themselves because of their dog. And now this person that a moment ago may not have been willing to entertain like the energy, spiritual side of things, if it is going to potentially help their dog who's struggling, they're like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll meditate with them. You got some goods for me? Yes, I've got great guided meditations. Okay, send them over. I'll try it. And they will. And the next thing you know, you're talking to someone that now is more in touch with their own spiritual essence, with their own heart and soul. And so dogs, in my view, and in really what has propelled this work, is that dogs are a portal. They're a channel. They're a instrument through which spirit can come into our lives. And many of us have eyes for dogs and have hearts for dogs, and we will open up more to dogs or any other animals more than we will humans. And so that certainly does fit me personally, ever since I was a very young little girl, having such a deep bond to dogs. A dog saved my life when I was 3 years old. So after that, there was this rich, powerful, karmic, soulful union that never went away, thank goodness. And actually, as I've gotten older, has just expanded more and more and kind of taken over my life, but in the best way.
It's your love of dogs that drew me to you the first time I saw you speak.
Really?
And you were sharing the story of being rescued by the dog. And I was sitting probably 15 or 20 rows back from where you were speaking, but I could tell from your face and the way your entire body changed when you started that part of your story about that deep connection.
Yeah.
Clearly. So here's a question I have on the Ayurvedic side. Is there a relationship between a dog's dosha and a person's dosha? And you may need to explain what a dosha is for folks, but is there a relationship, or do you find people who have a certain type gravitate towards a certain type of dog? We often hear that people look like their dogs and things like that, right? The hair, and that kind of stuff. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes, the foundational principle of Ayurveda is all about the doshas. They are these 3 mind-body types. And they are, each is a combination of 2 of the 5 great elements, which are space, air, fire, water, and earth. So when those pair up, basically those elements pair up, they create the mind-body types or personalities or constitutions, energies. There's many different words that they use for dosha, actually. And what it is it's our personality of our body and of our mind / behavior / emotions. So what does our body have a tendency to do? Like, is it more warm or cooler? Is it drier or more moist and oily? Does it tend towards digestive issues or inflammation or stagnation? So many of these characteristics are categorized by the dosha. And then when it comes to our mind, in the body, that is. And then when it comes to the mind, same thing. There are these categories kind of that show us how a being, and it applies to all of life, since Ayurveda is the science of life, it applies to all forms of this great experience of divine consciousness. And so when we look at the mind of different creatures, we can see also these tendencies, whether they're more nervous and ungrounded, unstable, or whether they're more intense and driven and focused, like that guy right there. He's always got a mission. Even right now, he's like, I'm not comfortable here, I'm moving here. It's like very clear and determined, right? That's one of the doshas. And then whether they're more loyal, grounded, easy, very easygoing, but can be inert, can be lazy, can be withdrawn, unengaging, and that can be one of the mind constitutions as well, and some of the qualities, I should say, of that constitution. So when we start to recognize, and what the doshas allow us to do is, once we understand what each one is, vata, pitta, and kapha are the 3 names. Once we understand the qualities of each, we're able to, I call it, see the world through Ayurvedic goggles and determine the different personality types, body, mind, personality types of different beings. And when we know that information, we are able to, 1, better understand that creature much more, to know what they need, what brings them to balance, to sama. That's what Samadog means, is this essential state of equanimity, homeostasis. So we can now know what our dog uniquely needs in order to come back to that place. And when in that place, that's when they thrive. That's when Ayurveda, that's the goal of Ayurveda, as I said, is really to bring the being, body, mind, and spirit into this alignment and harmony within all layers of their being, so that they are healthy, happy, whole, resilient, and long-lived. And that's all possible when we can kind of reset that to that middle point. And so, to answer your question about the doshas and our dogs and our own human canine bond, and through the doshas, I do notice that, just like with people, most of us will be drawn to partners, whether it's a human or a dog, that is the opposite in order to bring balance. most of us. Now, some of us will choose people or dogs that are very similar because they like the reflection of themselves in that dog. And they like that they both are sporty and they both are strong and big, or they both are kind of outsiders. You know, they like the relatability. So you find both. This is Violet, by the way, my big sweet Bernedoodle. And so we find both that some people really are drawn to that being, as said, to create that more balanced harmony in their life. And that works really well as long as both of them are in balance, because, you know, if you have two different doshas also, well, I should pause and say that all of us have all three doshas, have all three of those qualities within us. We usually just have one that is more pronounced. So when you notice that more pronounced one, you oftentimes will be drawn to the opposite. And that can, if they're both in balance, that can really keep each other in a great harmony. An example, because this tends to be a little ethereal, is someone who is kind of more insecure, nervous, maybe not the most social butterfly in the world, would then like and enjoy a dog that is very easygoing, loyal, grounded, simple, little slower, because that fast mind and that busy body will sometimes not know how to slow down, and the dog or a human can draw them into that. And same then on the flip side with people and dogs that are the same dosha. Let's say with Pitta, that's the fiery dosha. And so like someone that really loves to go jogging all the time, they might want a dog that wants that same thing and wants to be athletic. And so that's a good pick.
Good match. Right.
Good match,
right.
As long as they both stay in balance. But in the middle of the summertime, there's a lot going on in their lives. They've got family staying over with noisy kids or something, you know, and now the intensity in their environment has become heightened. And now they're going out for their walk anyway in the middle of the day, or their run. And now both of them are becoming overheated and a bit more intense and perhaps argumentative or even aggressive in the dog's case or the human's case. That heat can get too high. So then if you're matched up with the dosha that is the same, you get to make your choices to balance both of you all the time. Just, you know, what cools you down in this example, and then you share it with both of you. It's one of the fun things in working with people one-to-one is, I'd say 90% of the time, whatever I am recommending for their dog, I am recommending for them too. Whether it's a practice, a meditation, an affirmation, a supplement, a food that they need to bring in a little bit more, a food group, a taste, it usually is totally relatable one to the other, and they get to do it together.
Which is kind of nice, because it makes you feel less that it's something that is lacking in you, and it's more of a fun experiment.
Yes. And
Yeah.
Ayurveda gives us that space in general. I know for myself all the time, I will notice a tendency or something that, you know, I'm working on inside of myself. And the next thought that I've trained my brain to have is, this is part of your doshic qualities. This is part of who you are and who you're made up to be. There are strengths to that, and there are areas that you're going to be challenged with. And so learn to work with both of them. So it does allow a very forgiving space. Like if you have a dog that just wants to lounge around all the time, and before that you thought they were just a lazy bum and, you know, didn't want to go out and have fun with the other dogs, but then you come to learn that the dog's kapha. That's what that dosha does. It's more grounded and heavier and stable and consistent. They love routine. And so now you understand why, you know, your dog would be upset when you broke that routine kind of thing.
And I seem to remember on your website, you have tools for folks to figure out what dosha their dog is. Do I remember that right?
Yes, you do. Exactly.
Good.
It's on samadog.com/quiz. Quiz. Yep.
Who doesn't love a quiz?
Yeah, it's so fun, because then once the results come, it shows you the dog's predominant dosha. So they're primary. And then you kind of go through a series from there of learning more about it. And there's videos and whatnot that they can.
Oh, I love that. Well, speaking of your website, so I read this line that I just love, so I want to kind of toss it into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You said, sharing our lives with our dogs, just like any other relationships, comes with its joy as well as its challenges. I am constantly facing situations with my dogs and my human relationships that are difficult and confusing, yet those times are easily overshadowed when we look into one another's eyes. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges of this work, of working with dogs and their humans?
Mhm. I'd say probably one of the biggest challenges is that people feel that caring for their dog in the ways that I am suggesting is going to be too difficult or take too much time or take too much effort. And sadly, most of us, myself included, schedule ourselves so tight and so full into our lives of busyness that adding on what can be seen as, oh, now there's more to do. Now for my dog, the one being in my life that was like simple. So it's kind of like that, where I get to then invite them to see it a different way, which is you're both healing. You're both taking an opportunity to do things that are really, really good for yourselves. And most of us at some point, our dogs especially, are going to, if we don't care for them in this way, need more attention, time, money, veterinary expenses in the long run anyway. So why not allow yourself to not get to that, allow your dog to not get to that, and instead be empowered to all the tools and all the resources and all the fun modalities, the methods that we have to be able to heal each other. And when we share that, it does end up to be a little bit more fun for them and just kind of can go into their daily routine. Human beings in general, with at least in the West, with our animals, I've noticed quite an interesting gap. And that's another space that Samadog is looking to fill, is that those of us that enjoy natural world and holistic health, we will educate ourselves and typically have quite a few resources. If we wake up tomorrow morning and have a scratchy throat, we would be like, okay, I know exactly what to do. I need my honey and lemon, and I've got my echinacea, and I got my throat spray, and whatever else we got. I'm gonna go get some vitamin D and put my feet on the ground and be grounded and or earthed and all of that. So we have all of these tools and kind of steps that we would take. When it comes to our dog, we wake up in the morning and our dog has a goopy eye. Suddenly we're on the line with the vet and they have an appointment that afternoon, and then they have medicine by 5 o'clock. And not that there isn't an incredibly important role for veterinarians in this world, but they're the first ones to tell us the more we can do on the front end to help our animals be their healthiest and happiest at home, the better for all of us. And so there's so much, there are so many tools that we have within that toolbox to be able to help our animals. And yet most of us don't even know where to start. So that's where little by little, I teach resources and, different methods as shared that will be able to give them those exact tools. So whether it's just the dog feeling a little off, and now we have some energy/spiritual practices and meditations that we can do with them. Or if the dog has the goopy eye, now you have some ingredients right there in your kitchen that you could use to help at least see if that would help the eye, in fact, and give it a couple days. And then, maybe we do still need some veterinary care, but in a lot of cases, we can be very capable ourselves of helping our animals. And so, if you start Googling, what do I do for my dog's eye, you're going to find 10,000 pages to give information on that. So that's why my intention is to have one resource that provides a multitude of opportunities for people to gain these skills and to become empowered advocates for their animals.
I love that, because for some animals also, that trip to the vet can be a traumatizing or re-traumatizing event.
Yes.
So the way that we're able to support them and not need to go perhaps that extra step is important, I think, especially for the ones who that might make it worse, even for just the little goopy eye.
Oh, in many cases it can, because a lot of the pharmaceuticals, as we well know, not to get down that path too deep, but chemicals, toxins, even the preservatives that are put into some of those things, they are not healthy for our animals, just like they're not healthy for us. So the less, the better. And so if every little ailment, we're putting some sort of chemical on it to heal that being, and yet not really getting to the core of health, which is that vital life force built from the inside out with food, in the case of dogs, especially with food and so much more. That vitality coming from inside out is exactly what can keep all of the health needs away. That'll hold the strength of the body up so that it doesn't have those ailments that then require all of those different products and medicines, and your animal can stay toxin free, or at least a lot less.
So I'm running up on my time clock here. I feel like I could do this for hours, but I want to switch the focus just a little bit to directly onto you, if I may. And I know that some of us who seek to elevate consciousness around animals and the needs of beings other than humans, that we often face some criticism about that we're spending our time not solving human problems, but solving problems in other areas. Have you come up against that? And if so, how do you work with that? How do you respond?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. And when I first started into this world of catering to dogs, because I had been already teaching meditation, yoga, Ayurveda for up until that point, 15 years already for humans. And so once I started to just bring my attention to the world of dogs, the first step was into the rescue dogs. I had fosters coming into the home, and I was trying all these things out with them and seeing miraculous change. And it was all about the dogs at that point. And I did hear a little bit of, what about the healing of the humans? Have you let the humans go? Or if we a lost cause, you've just moved on. And what I found was, of course, I would address those conversations and say that I absolutely was still bringing much attention to the human world as well. What I did find a big shift with was when I started Samadog. Maybe it's the tagline, well-being for dogs and their humans, right there, that conveys to people what the intention is. This is about the bond. This is about both. This is about deepening your relationship and the way you can care for one another, and the experience that you can have together. And so once I started to share in that way, people definitely were more open. I didn't hear that anymore. And actually, one of my favorite things that will commonly happen is we'll be talking about a dog and the steps we can take to help them. And the person, it usually becomes more of a whisper. They'll even get closer to the mic and they'll say, a lot of this actually helped me.
How surprising.
Yes.
I know my meditation practice, when I started meditating with animals, was actually when I was able to start dropping in. Yeah. Right? Yeah. There was something about being able to tune my breath to the breath of another being that allowed me to focus on my breath in a way that I couldn't when my brain was all scattered.
Yes.
And just being able to drop into that. So I think there's a lot to be said for those shared benefits, I suppose.
Definitely. And as I mentioned earlier, that some people really see like a spiritual inspiration through their animals. Some will also find more comfort simply being around their animals. So when they do have their dog next to them and they're nice and warm and fuzzy and you can hear their sweet breath and smell them a little bit, there's like a comfort that goes over the whole physiology of everything's okay. And then that person can, in fact, let go enough to meditate.
I love it. I love it. All right. So I have one final question for you, which is kind of my oddball question, but I really love to hear how people respond. So here we go. If you're game.
I'm game. I'm okay.
Open. Let's say a new being was just discovered. It's furry, purplish in color, about 24 inches tall, with a long tail, 2 transparent webbed wings, large green eyes, very small ears, and no teeth. What would you name it?
I don't know why, but the first name that comes into my head is Harry. Even though there was no hairiness there, but maybe more of like that kind of Harry is like an established name, like you can trust you can count on that being, that creature, I feel like has wisdom of the ages. So I would trust a purple Harry.
I love it. We like to name things, and I think it's interesting when we have something that's fantastical or mythical or just beyond what we expect to be
Yeah.
able to name, what comes out of our subconscious
Yeah.
in there. And so there we go. We'll go with Harry. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for your time today, for your dog's time as well, in lending their support over here. He's just about to roll off that sofa right there.
I know. He's like, I'm good. Everything is fine and blissful and peaceful in my world.
Well, he's
Contentment.
a good role model
Yes.
for us. And the
Yes.
website is samadog.com. Is that
Yes,
correct?
it is. Yep.
Excellent. Amanda, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. Namaste.
Namaste.